Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 224, in the likeness and image of God. What exactly does that mean? The Bible doesn't actually define what it means, and I was trying to think about it, and I've been thinking about it for quite some time. And I've come to a couple conclusions in my mind, and I've toyed with some ideas, thrown some out, and actually try to refine my thought process here. So, in the likeness and image of God, like what is our likeness and image of? What actually compromises a human being? Because we are matter, right? Our physical nature actually compromises parts of our human being. Our physical nature, meaning our height, our weight, our symmetry, how many fingers and toes, any deformities that we have, any deformities we might not have. That's our physical being. Could that be in the likeness and image of God? Is that how we are created physically? Could it be our intellect or capacity to reason? That's another option, is the capacity to actually take in the world around us and formulate ideas, and then formulate ideas about right and wrong and so on and so forth. Is that how we are made in the likeness and image of God? It's possible. And the final possibility is in terms of our action and how we engage the world. We actually have a great capacity to look at the world, to then engage the world and act within the world. And action is what puts our thoughts and our morality into practice. And so our physical nature, let's break this down first and foremost. Our physical nature is this in the likeness and image of God. And I think the answer is probably an obvious no. I don't think it could be in the likeness and image of God because there are some people that are born highly diseased and deformed. Not everybody's made equally, obviously, and therefore that would mean in the likeness and image of God that if our physical nature, just our pure physical nature, were the judgment of that, then it couldn't be, because then it would mean that God would have certain unequal parts, and God is he's perfect and perfect in every way, and therefore I've deduced that I don't think that our physical nature could be what we were made in terms of the likeness and image of God. The second part is our intellect, the capacity to reason and formulate ideas. Now, that is possible, but let's just say you're a kind of a shut-in and you're deaf and dumb and your ears are closed and your eyes are closed and you're not able to see or hear the world, but you do have thought. Now, if you have these thoughts, what good does it do for man? Because it is possible you can have just random neurons firing, and random neurons firing could give you actually fleeting thoughts. But what good does it do for the world if you actually just think the thought and do nothing with it? And I would say that there are very malevolent people in the world that have great capacity for reasoning and great capacity for intellect, and therefore just the pure intellect and reasoning ability is not what makes us in the likeness and image of God, because certainly Lucifer had the same capacity. And then it brings us down to action, like how we engage the world, because we have the capacity to act and change the world in whatever way we feel as if we want to change the world. And so, if you look at last century, human beings actually have the capacity for great malevolence and great harm in the world. And last century proves it. Like, we had people that were putting their neighbors in death camps. We have children that were turning their parents in for murder and slaughter because they were subservient to the state and not subservient to a divine higher power or subservient to their parents. So people actually have the great capacity for huge malevolence and the capacity to recreate hell on earth. And so if that were true, if our actions had that capacity, then the corollary must also be true as well. And I've said this before, that if we have the capacity for great malevolence, we also have the great capacity to do what's absolutely right. And so, and that's probably a rarer trait, but it is possible, and I think very few people master it within their lives. And so when you master the capacity for doing great things, and when I say great things, actions that serve your fellow man to reduce suffering in the world, that is what I think good capacity is, where you actually do things for the common good, where you actually sacrifice your own wants, wills, mores, desires, and everything else for progressing the world in a better way. And so humans have the capacity for great malevolence in terms of bad, in terms of their actions, but they also have capacity for great benevolence and, dare I say, godlike behavior. And therefore, I've determined that we are made in the likeness and image of God because we have a physical nature that we are able to formulate thoughts and intellect in. And with that thoughts and intellect, we are able to impart those thoughts and intellect into actions of goodness. And so, being made in the likeness and image of God, we are made in the likeness and image of God because we have the capacity to do good in this world. That is what I think it probably means, which then boils it down to each and every single one of us. If being godlike, like being in the likeness and image of God, means we have to do good, now we have to think about our own personal lives and our own personal sins and our own personal fallen nature. And when I say we have to live a sacramental life in the church, which I've said in numerous videos previously, the sacramental life of the church is a process in which you engage God in a thoughtful process, and one of obligation and one of accountability, where you have to go to the sacraments and you actually have to go to First Holy Communion. You have to go to penance, and you have to do the penance that the priest gives you, and you engage the world in this way. That is a step ladder to taking your physical body with your intellectual reasoning and putting it into action to do good. And that is why the Holy Roman Catholic Church, I think, is probably the superior religion, the most superior religion on this planet. That's why I think it's probably necessary for the salvation of man. So, can other religions do this? Yeah, in some capacity, they can get you to reason, and they can get you your physical nature to do good. Absolutely, I'm not saying that, but there is one promise in there that Christ Himself said within John chapter 6 is, "Unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you shall not have eternal life." Your ancestors didn't do it, and they're all dead. So, therefore, the Roman Catholic Church is the only church on the planet that has the Holy Eucharist in both body and blood, and also the sacramental infrastructure to orient the body, the physical body, with the intellect of the mind, to orient that person into doing good. And that is what it means to be in the likeness and image of God. And so this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe. And please orient your life towards the good. And that takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of meditation. It takes a lot of denial of self. And please use the sacraments, live a sacramental life. And like or subscribe, share with your friends, and pray the daily rosary. God bless you all.